Okay, so hi everyone. Welcome to Speak for the Trees. My name's Sydney Howlett and I work for GreenLearning. I'm actually a former teacher myself. So I used to be in a classroom with students just like you. I've taught all over Southern Ontario, basically just around Toronto, in Northern Toronto, near Barrie, Peterborough, and in Guelph. And I'm joined today by Andriana from GreenLearning as well. So she's our program coordinator and she'll be helping out today, just dropping some links in the chat so everybody can keep up. If you have any questions, she will be monitoring the chat. We do have a couple points throughout where you can ask questions, so feel free to do that, okay? So let's get started. So Speak for the Trees. We're here to learn all about energy. But what does that mean? What are we going to be learning about today? So by the end of this workshop, I hope that you can describe your personal energy use. And we're going to be doing so in terms of kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions. And when I say greenhouse gas emissions, I'm talking about the emissions or the atmospheric emissions that are being put into the atmosphere through combustion of fossil fuels. So that's burning coal, burning gas, oil, or however it may be. I hope that you're able to relate your energy use to the carbon dioxide that trees can absorb. And I hope that you can identify more than one way to reduce your carbon footprint or your energy use. So obviously we're talking about energy today. So let's start off by talking about when we use energy personally in our lives. So I love to do this activity popcorn style, but educators, you can decide what's best for your group. When do you use energy throughout the day? I want you to start at the very beginning of your day when you wake up in the morning and go all the way to the end of the day when you go to bed. When do you use electrical energy throughout the day? So I know I wake up with an alarm clock that uses energy. I take a nice warm shower in the morning, which uses a hot water heater. I like to make a tea in the morning, which uses a kettle and use my electric toothbrush. So I want you to go through your day and I want you to brainstorm as many devices that you use throughout the day that use electrical energy. To gear up, so those are for my grade 7 and 8 students, think about also when you're not really using a device, but it's constantly running, such as your water heater. So don't forget about those devices that are still in use. So I'm going to give you about 1 minute, brainstorm as a group all the devices you use that use electrical energy in your daily lives. You might be surprised by the number of devices that you're using. But for today, we're going to focus in on a few. So as you're brainstorming, I want you to record in your device column on your handout which devices you want to learn more about, which devices you're curious about, how much energy they use, what impact is that having. You can choose to look at your morning routine, your evening routine, the devices you use most often. It's completely up to you, but I'd like you to fill in a few devices in this column. I'm only going to give you a few seconds and you'll have time afterwards as well to completely fill this out. But I want you to have at least a couple devices that you want to focus on for today. And obviously educators, if you want to put a range on that, you're more than welcome to, depending on your students. You know them best. Okay, so now that we have a few of the devices that use electrical energy throughout our day, we want to know how much energy that uses. But how do we go about measuring energy? Well, to measure distance, we use a ruler and can measure in centimeters or meters. For energy, we can measure using what we call a watt meter. Now, there are a number of different ways to measure energy, but this is the one we're going to use today. And we measure energy in what we call watts. So that's our unit. So just like in measurement, when we measure, we use centimeters for watts. For our unit, this uses watts. And just so that we all have a clear understanding of what watts are, we're going to watch a quick video about it. And I'll warn you, there is a quiz afterwards, so pay attention. And I apologize, this video is a little bit quiet. So Andriana is going to pop a link in the chat. If you'd like to play this video just in your class, you're more than welcome to do that as well if you can't hear it well.
What's a watt? This little old lady can generate 40 watts. This teenager, about 90 watts.
See ya, Grandma. Woo-hoo. Young whippersnapper.
What's a watt? It's the measure of power. We want power, and power is measured in watts. Make sense?
What's a watt?
1 joule per second equals 1 watt. So what's a joule? No, joule, not joule. Let's make this simple. Here's Lance. He's an elite cyclist. Lance can produce about 250 watts for up to 8 hours straight. He can produce 500 watts for a few minutes and as much as 1,500 watts during a sprint. And here's Lance on steroids. Just kidding. So what's a watt? A watt is a measure of energy flow. We put energy into a conversion device to make power. A plane, a truck, even ourselves.
Wait, food to a person?
Sure, food contains energy that we convert to power. Here's Lance using energy to create power. So what's a watt? A watt is a measure of power. So is a kilowatt, which is 1,000 watts. So is a megawatt, which is 1,000,000 watts. So is a gigawatt, which is 1 billion watts. So what's a watt? It's the way we measure power output. A watt is a measure of energy flow. We use energy to generate power.
Okay, so I hope you were all listening because we're actually going to play a game of Kahoot now. And I know that not everyone has technology, so we're going to use a strategy where I'm going to actually get you to put your fist on across your chest like this. And if your answer is A, you're going to put up a 1, B, 2, C, 3, D, 4. Okay, so there are multiple choice questions. If you do have technology and would like to join in using technology or play as a class, you are more than welcome to. So in order to do that, you go to kahoot.it, and Andriana is going to drop that link in the chat, and then just type in the game pin. Andriana is also going to share that if you just like to copy and paste. So up to you, educators, how you would like to do it. If you'd like to play as a class, if you'd like to play individually on your test, or if you'd like to play
my students are just logging into Kahoot right now, so give them a second if you can, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I do have the friendly name generator on, so you won't be able to put in your real name, but the computer will automatically give you something great like Champion Impala or Nibble Sloth. It's great names. One more second. So I will read out the questions and the answers to help you. What you need to do is to select which answer you think is best. And a lot of these questions you're not going to know the answer to. So this is a way that we're going to discover some answers as well. And there's going to be some answers that you heard in the video we just watched about watts and energy and what that means. So keep that in mind, top of mind. Okay, I'm seeing the numbers slow down. Do we need another second to get logged in?
Yes, just 1 second. Their Chromebooks were a little slow, but they're getting on right away.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you for waiting.
The happy sea lion. That's how I feel today. Like a happy sea lion. I hope you're all having a great Earth Week as well. I hope you've planned something fun to celebrate the Earth, maybe clean it up a little bit. I know Andriana and I, we've been talking about some plans this week to go out to the park and clean up. Not together, unfortunately, because we're in different provinces, but awesome. So for those of you who are playing as a class, or if you wanted to play individually with your hand, again, A is 1, B 2, C 3, D 4. Okay, so you can just keep it there. So nobody else has to know your answers. You can just keep them to yourself. Okay, so this is a learning activity. I'm not expecting you to know the answers. Okay, I think in the interest of time, we'll get started. It looks like the numbers have stopped rolling.
Yep, they are close to ready. 10 seconds and we'll be good to go. Thank you so much.
All right. Awesome. So we're all set to go. So again, I'll read out the question and you can just put your finger up or answer online or as a class. Okay. All right, let's get started. So what is climate change? You've probably heard that word before, but what does it mean? Is it an increase in the overall temperature of the Earth's atmosphere? A change in global or regional climate patterns? A sudden change in conditions like temperature or rainfall? Or a seasonal weather change? So again, you can put your fingers up or you can answer here. Awesome. So the increase in overall temperature of the Earth's atmosphere is what we refer to as global warming. But climate change actually is a little bit more broad and refers to the fact that not only is the world getting warmer, but the climate is actually changing entirely. So weather is becoming more extreme. So it's not just that things are getting warmer. Some places are actually getting colder. So we actually use climate change to describe that. So great for those of you who got that right. And those of you who didn't, we're learning. That's awesome. A watt is, all of you should know this one, a measure of weight, a measure of speed, a measure of heat, or the measure of energy flow. So what is a watt from that video? Awesome. So almost all of you got it right. So that is the measure of energy flow or power. Perfect. Now this next one, think back to your math. A kilowatt is how many watts? Is it 100 watts, 1,000 watts, 10,000 watts, or none of the above? Awesome. Get your answers in as quickly as you can. Perfect. So it's 1,000 watts. So just like a kilometer is 1,000 meters, a kilowatt is 1,000 watts. So our language helps us out there sometimes. Which country has the highest energy consumption per person? So in which country do you think the people use the most energy? Do you think it's in Canada, the United States of America, China, or Germany? Who do you think that is? 1, 2, 3, or 4? You know what? I think I always get you on this one. Most of you said the United States. Actually, per person, Canada uses the most energy in the entire world. That's a lot. Even more than our southern friends in the States. How many watts do you think a toaster uses? So this one you probably don't know, so I want you to take a guess. What do you think? Do you think it's 850 watts, 950 watts? What about 1050 watts? 1150? How many do you think a toaster uses? Awesome. So it's on the lower range actually, but again, toasters range in how many watts they use. Some toasters only have 2 slots for toast, some have 4. So obviously the bigger ones are going to use more energy. So that's something we need to keep in mind as well. So when you see these watt numbers, it's not exact, they're definitely approximates, okay? Another watt question. How many watts does a laptop use? What do you think? Do you think it's 25, 100, 200, 1,000? How many watts? I got you again. Laptops use surprising little amount of watts. And we're going to have a look a little bit later about my laptop and see how many mine uses. How many watts do you think a cell phone uses? So keep in mind how much a computer uses. Are they similar? Do you think it's more or less? Use that information to help you answer this question of how many watts you think your cell phone uses to charge. Awesome. So it is closer to 10 watts. So it is a little bit less than our laptops. They're smaller. They typically just take less energy because they can do less than your laptop can. How many watts do you think a projector uses? So I'm not talking about one of these old school projectors. I'm talking about the projectors in your classroom. So modern projectors, 100 watts, 120, 180, or 220 watts. Do you think it's close to what your laptop uses or your cell phone? So projectors actually use a lot of energy to run. They're not super efficient. So that's actually 220 watts and up. This one's a true or false. So still 1 for true, 2 for false. The main human activity that causes CO2 or carbon dioxide into our atmosphere, which causes the heating, is the combustion or burning of fossil fuels. That's coal, natural gas, oil for energy. So, is our main contributor to greenhouse gases our energy use? True or false? That is true. So our energy use is causing the most emissions of greenhouse gases, which then contributes to climate change. On average, how much CO2 or carbon dioxide do you think a tree can absorb in a year? So we know that they take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and they spit back out energy. How much of that do you think they can do in a year? 18 kilograms, 23, 21, or 26 kilograms? What do you think? So a lot of you are very optimistic that trees could absorb a lot. Again, this depends on the type of tree, the age of the tree, but for the most part, on average, it's about 21 kilometers or 21 kilograms. So what is the decision and practice of using less energy? Is it energy consumption, eco-friendly, energy reservation, or energy conservation? So keep in mind, this is specific to energy. Okay, very close. So being eco-friendly is more of a general term when you're being friendly to the environment, but energy conservation is the actual decision and practice of using less energy. But if you're conserving energy, then you are in turn being eco-friendly. So they do go hand in hand, but the answer there was energy conservation. So awesome. We're not going to look at the prizes because that doesn't really matter, but I hope you did learn a little something about that. So now we're going to look at a few different devices with my watt meter that I have here. And behind me, you might be able to see I have a few devices. And I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for 1 second so that you can see me a little bit bigger and you can actually read these numbers. Because I'm actually going to get one of you to write them down because in the last workshop I did, I completely forgot all of my numbers. Okay, so the way this works is this is what I use to measure energy. And how this works is I plug this into the wall. You can see here it's got an outlet. So I plug that into the wall. And then I actually plug my device into this meter. So I'm going to go ahead here. I have a nice handy extension cord here. I'm going to plug that in. And then I can see on my chart here, it's going to tell me how many watts a device uses. So I'm going to start out with my blow dryer today. So this is my blow dryer. Blow dryers use quite a bit of energy. So I apologize, this is going to be loud for a second. but I want you to look at the number on the machine, okay? So I'm plugging this into my watt device. I'm gonna show you this and I'm gonna start it. Okay, so we've got about 1,040 is what I saw, but that was only on level 1. Do you think it makes a difference what level it's on? Do you think the energy use will go up if I turn it up to level 2? Have a look. Okay, did anyone catch how much that was? Sorry, when I look at it in the screen, I'm looking at it backwards, so I'm having a hard time reading that number. Awesome, I see lots of friends in Miss Cedar Strand's class. Maybe one of you could let me know at the end of this, okay? So we'll go through them all. So can I get one of you to write that number down for me and I'll come back to you afterwards, okay? So how many watts my blow dryer used? Now I have a lamp here as well. But instead of just showing you this lamp, I'm going to show you a couple of different light bulbs. So this is something you might hear all the time of transitioning to LED light bulbs. But what does that mean? Are light bulbs all different? Are they all the same? Well, I have 3 different types of light bulbs here. This one here is an incandescent light bulb, which means that it actually heats up wires in here and uses the heat to produce light. This one here is a CFL, and then I also have an LED. So 3 different types of light bulbs are going to use different energy, and they're going to produce a different amount of light. So not only do I want you to look at the watt numbers for this one, but I also want you to look at how bright the light is and let me know if you notice anything. So I'm going to start with the incandescent light bulb. Okay, so this one is made of glass. And I'm only going to put it on for a couple of seconds because this one can get really, really hot and I want to be safe. So you should never do this at home or without an adult, okay? So I'm plugging my lamp in here and I'm going to turn it on. Okay, so what number do we have there? About 50, I'm going to round up to 56. And look at how bright this light is. Okay, it's got a little bit of a yellowy tinge to it. It's not super bright. That's okay. Now, what if I change to my CFL? So this is a fluorescent light or fluorescent lamp as they're sometimes called as well. So first look at it. Is it any brighter than the last one, do you think? What about the watts? So there you can see it's using already significantly less. So is that 12 and a half about? I'm going to round up to about 13 watts. So this uses about 13. So that's significantly less than the incandescent light bulb. Now we're going to try the LED. So these are the most efficient light bulbs that we have currently. And let's see what a difference that makes. And look how bright that light is. That one only takes about 6 watts. So that's a really big difference from the incandescent that was using almost close to 60 watts to now the LED, which is using 1/10 of that at around 6 watts. So changing your light bulbs really does make a difference. What else do I have here? I also have a diffuser. So a diffuser that it's meant for scents. Some of you might have these at home. I'm going to plug this one in here. Okay. And this one does something a little bit different sometimes. So you can see there, I haven't turned it on yet, but you might notice my watt meter is reading something. So my device here actually has a light on it. So you might be able to see, I know it's a little bit bright, but this light is actually red, which is telling me that my diffuser is off. And even though my diffuser is off, that light is taking energy, a very small amount. You can hardly even tell, but sometimes you can see it jump up there. That's what we call the phantom load, which means that this device, even though it's not on, because it's plugged in, is still using energy. So let's see if that changes when I actually turn the device on. Okay, so the light is green, it's on now. And you can see that jumps up to about 10, We'll round up to 11 watts. Okay, so we also want to think about the phantom load when we're talking about energy, because that's one way that we can really easily reduce our energy use is by unplugging things that we're not even using, because those are still sucking energy. Okay, I did tell you we would test out my laptop, so I'll give that a go now. So I have my plug here, gonna plug it into my watt meter. Okay. And here you can see my computer. So this is me just sitting here doing nothing. Now, give me a second and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do something online and I'm gonna come back and I want you to let me know if it jumps up, okay? Did it increase at all? Yeah, I'm seeing some head nods. Thank you. So not only does my laptop use energy, but it uses a different amount of energy depending on what I'm doing. So usually things that take a lot of energy use like the internet or even videos. So if you're streaming online videos or watching YouTube, that uses more energy than if you're just sitting here on your computer using a Word document, for example. So that's something to keep in mind as well. I have two more here that I'll show you quickly and then we'll move on. So I also have my cell phone charger here. So how many of you plug in your cell phone or your tablet or your iPad and just leave it plugged in all night long? Guilty, for sure. So let's have a look here at my cell phone. So my cell phone uses a very small amount of energy. So about 7 watts, we'll round up there. But that's every time my cell phone is plugged in. But my cell phone doesn't take 8 hours to charge. So do I need to plug that in all night long? No. Am I wasting energy by doing that? I am. And it's actually not good for your phone battery either. Okay, it actually reduces the life of that. So things that you can also do is once a device is done charging, make sure you unplug it so that you're not wasting energy for nothing and overloading that battery. The last one I'm going to show you here today is my kettle, because I am an avid tea drinker. I love my tea, and I use my kettle multiple times a day. So again, this one's going to be a little bit loud. We'll have a look here. Okay, so you can see it starts off a little slow, but it's slowly kind of going up. Once the water starts to boil, jumps up a little bit. Okay, so I won't boil the whole water, but you can see that this has significantly more watts than, for example, my light, my diffuser, or any of the other devices I showed you, the exception of my blow dryer. So if you don't have a watt meter, you can still determine your energy, how much watts a device uses at home. So usually that information can be found on the description when you're buying something. Sometimes it can be found on the tag of your devices. With the example of light bulbs, most light bulbs actually say right on them how many watts they use. So for example, this is really, really tiny, but if you can see there, it actually tells you the watts that this light bulb uses. You can also readily Google that information. So if you have a device at home that you're really curious about and you don't have a watt meter handy, that information is very easy to find. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen now, and we're going to work on our handout. And I'm going to do the first example, and then I'll let you go off on your own. Okay, so my friend from Mrs. Cedarstrand's class, can you remind me again how much my blow dryer used?
480 watts.
480 watts. Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll be honest, I used my blow dryer for a very long time this morning. I used it for about 20 minutes. And that's being honest. So I'm going to do daily use. I don't use it every day, but if I were to, that would be a lot. So I'm going to put about 10 minutes here. Okay. Then I'm going to head over to my energy calculator. And this calculator that I'm using today is specific to Alberta. We also do have an Ontario calculator. So if you're located in Ontario, you can use that calculator or use the calculator that's closest to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those watts, and I've already forgotten that number, 480, there we go. 480 watts. And I said I used it for about 10 minutes a day. I'm going to hit calculate and see what that gives me. So if I was living in Alberta, it would cost me $1.97 per year to run just my kettle. I would be emitting 24 kilograms of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere per year, and I would be using 29 kilowatt hours per year. So I'm going to take this number, the 24 kilograms of greenhouse gases that I produced, and I'm going to put it over here in my chart as well. And I'm going to add in my units as well, just so I don't get confused there. So we're going to do this for all of ours, and I'll give you a chart with the energy use watts in a second. But we're going to go through and we're going to try and figure out the use of our devices for everything we use, or as much as we can in a day. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to take that number and figure out how many trees it would take to offset our use. So we know that trees take carbon dioxide from the air, they use the carbon, and they emit back out the oxygen that we breathe. We know that a tree can absorb on average 21 kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions per year. So that means in order to figure out how many trees I would need to offset how much I'm emitting, I need to divide my greenhouse gases by 21. So for example, I have 24 here. If I wasn't to use a calculator, I know right off the top of my head that that's more than 21, so I'm obviously using more than one tree. You can use a calculator for this to calculate your exact number. So what you could do, and I'll just open a calculator here really quickly, and we had, so 24 kilograms is how much greenhouse gases I was producing by using my kettle. I'm going to divide that by 21, which is the kilograms that a tree can absorb, which gives me 1.14. I'm just going to round to 1.1. So it would take 1.1 trees, or 1.1 tree, an entire year to absorb out of the atmosphere what I'm putting in just by using my kettle. And that's only my kettle, not to mention all the other devices I use throughout the day, including my water heater, my furnace, my fridge, the things that are constantly running as well. So we're going to calculate all of this and see how many trees we're using through our electrical energy use. Okay, so I have a chart here that gives you some information about the watts used. Okay, and then we're going to be using the energy calculator I showed here, and Andriana, I believe, has dropped a link in the chat already, to calculate what our kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions would be. So we'll do one more example, and then I'll set you free to figure out your own. Okay, so let me see here. I believe my laptop was around 25, we said, and I use my laptop a lot. I work on it basically all day long. So I'm going to say I use it for about 420 minutes. Okay, so remember that this is in minutes. So if you're calculating in hours, for example, a light bulb that you might have on for hours throughout the day, you need to multiply that by 60 to get your minutes. Okay, so there's quite a bit of math involved here. Okay, so I'm going to put that into my calculator as well. So 25 watts for 420 minutes. So 420 minutes. Okay, that's 52 kilograms of greenhouse gases I'm producing per year. 52. Okay, so I want you to go through and do all of this for your personal energy use. And again, that's more than one tree. And depending on where you are, that's going to change. So this is the Alberta calculator. Let me take 1 second and show you what that looks like in the Ontario calculator. So if I was to take the same numbers, so if I was to use my example of my blow dryer, which was 24 kilograms in Alberta, that 480 in 10 minutes. In Ontario, look at the difference in kilograms of greenhouse gases that I'm using. But it's costing me a ton more. So there are a lot of differences and a lot of factors that we need to consider when we're talking about energy. And if you have questions about those, I'm happy to answer them. We also have full programs that can walk you through all of this information in our Energy Revealed program. So I'm going to put this back up. I want you to go through and try and record on your sheet the devices that you chose. If your device isn't here and you have access to technology, you're welcome to look up the exact watts, but for right now, this is an approximate that you can use. Okay, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, or if you'd like to raise your hand and unmute yourself, we can do that as well. Now is a really great time to ask questions and really explore the calculator. You can also compare. So for example, if I was looking at how I could improve my energy use, I could look at my blow dryer, which I 480 watts for 10 minutes, and I can calculate what happens if I cut that in half. How many kilograms of greenhouse gases am I saving? What if I even just, if I went from 10, what if I just calculated 2 minutes less? How would that change things? So play around as well and come up with how you're going to improve your energy use for the future. So that's going to be a question that I ask you soon. So to gear up educators, students should be expected to incorporate all aspects of electrical energy depending on their grade. So if you'd like them to focus on their morning routine, evening routine, all devices, school devices, I'm going to leave that up to you on how you want to organize that. But I'll set you free now for a few minutes, and then we'll come back together and we'll discuss again. Okay. And again, if any questions come up, feel free to pop those in the chat. I'm happy to answer those and talk about energy as much as you'd like. So I'll give you about 1 more minute and then we'll come back together before I set you free again. Again, if you have any questions, just let me know. Okay, I'm going to bring it back for a second and then I'll bring it back to this screen in a minute where you can have some more time to go through and continue establishing your energy use. I'll give you some time at the end. But I just want to take a minute and I want you to look at what you have so far. And I want you to pick a couple of maybe the most energy suckers, the ones who use the most energy, or a place where you think it would be really easy to cut out energy use. And I want you to make one decision today. And I want you to write it down on your sheet that you're going to commit to me of how you're going to reduce your energy use. So whether it's you're going to talk to your family about changing over to LED light bulbs, maybe you're going to unplug your device when it's done charging. Maybe you're going to unplug the devices that aren't being used at all. What is it that you're going to do to reduce that energy consumption? So make sure it's a brainstorm. So think about all the different possibilities. And if you write down more than one, that's fantastic. But I want you to start with at least one thing, okay? If you have your totals of kilograms of greenhouse gases that you're producing through your energy use, how many trees that equates to, feel free to pop that in the chat. We'd love to know and make that part of the conversation. I know this is tough when I can't interact with you as much, but we'd love to have as much information as we can. And then I'll let you go for a few more minutes and then we'll wrap up with just some ideas on how we can take things further. Okay, so I'm going to put it back to this chart here. I'll give you a couple more minutes and then we'll wrap up. Sorry about that. Okay, so I know you're probably still working away on your calculations and figuring all this information out. So I will give you some time at the end to finish this up, but I would like to give you an idea of some of the things that you can actually do in order to improve your carbon footprint or reduce your energy use, which means you're putting less emissions into the air and helping to combat climate change. So I'm going to head over to our Energy Revealed website. So that's energyrevealed.ca. And we have 2 awesome challenges this year where you can win prizes. And look here at these: first prize, $1,000, second prize, $500, third prize, $250 for your class. And we have 2 challenges that you can compete in, all that are going to help you save energy. The first is the School Earth Hour Challenge. In this challenge, your class actually plans a School Earth Hour. So you come up with ideas on how you could conserve energy. You let your school know about it, you promote it, then you host your School Earth Hour and track your impact. So you can use our calculator to calculate exactly how many kilograms of greenhouse gases you'll be saving your school if you'd like. Do all of that, send it back to us, and you could win one of these prizes. If you're learning from home, like many of us are, we also have the home equivalent, the Home Energy Audit Challenge. And this can be seen as more of a scavenger hunt around your house where you're searching for different things. For example, counting up how many of each light bulb you have in your house, how many devices you have plugged in. And based on that, you can use that information to determine how you can save energy and coming up with an energy savings plan. Once you have that, put your plan into action, send it back to us. And again, the prizes are first place $1,000, second place $500, and third place $250. And you can use that money to maybe invest in a watt meter for your class or get some more energy efficient light bulbs for your school. So these are some great challenges. I encourage you to register. By registering, I'll also send you all kinds of additional information and resources. The resources in our Energy Revealed program and all of our programs actually are completely free. All of you have a login for Energy Revealed. So if you'd like to access these resources and continue on the learning about the phantom load, the last session, there was a lot of interest in electric vehicles, anything related to energy, GreenLearning has a ton of resources and we want to help you bring that learning to life in your classroom. You can also contact your local school provider and get information about how much energy you're using in your school. So you can actually get the bills and the real data to find out how much you're spending on energy, how many kilowatt hours you're using. Your school board will have all that information that you can use as well. Okay, so I wanted to leave you with that. We do have another about 15 minutes. So if you'd like to continue working on your worksheet, we'd love to, again, to hear what you have. If not, you're welcome to put your questions in the chat. We'll be here to answer anything you'd like. Andriana dropped the links to the challenges in the chat. So if you'd like to head on over and register for that, you're more than welcome to. We encourage you to do so, actually. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming. I hope you are feeling energized about energy, and I hope you have a great Earth Week. Again, we'll be here, so stick around if you're not finished or if you have any questions.